Welcome to Feminine Power Time, where wisdom, leadership, and well-being meet. And welcome to this special season 8.5, the season of light. I'm Jennifer Alexander, your guest host for this season, which will run in June, July, and August. But whenever you're listening, trust that you're receiving this in the perfect season for you. Christine and I have curated the season of light for you with the intention of creating a space where you can come to stay light. And as a reminder, what is staying light? Well, it means to stay centered, calm, and clear, to be radiant, resilient, and rooted, even in the midst of the swirl of the outside world. It's not about spiritual bypassing. Instead, it's a way of living and utilizing our practices in order to come back to our light, even when we get wobbly. And let's face it, we're human. We're going to experience the wobbles. Choosing to be part of Team Elevate, as we like to call it here at Feminine Power Time, is not about being perfect and maintaining some high level of vibrational consciousness all the time. It's about being human, having emotions, having thoughts, and seeing them in order to transform them and elevate from wherever we are, so that we can show up differently as leaders in our own lives and in how we respond to the swirl around us. Now, last week on the podcast, we explored staying light through the inquiry, what sustains my radiance? So, if you haven't tuned into that episode yet, definitely bookmark it and go back and have a listen. Today, we're building on this exploration by looking at sort of the flip side of this and contemplating the inquiry, what drains my radiance? This is going to be so good, y'all. We're going to be going deep and creating a space for awareness, which is the first step in shifting our patterns in order to elevate. And that's why we're all here, to elevate our own frequency and consciousness. And by elevating our own consciousness, we elevate the consciousness of the planet. So, are you all ready to dive in? Here's Christine.
Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is Christine Arilo, your host, and this session we're going to dive deep into this inquiry. What drains, dims, or distorts your radiance? Just take a breath with me. We're going to start the slow down process here. We are spending these 3 episodes diving deep into not the concept of radiance, but the freaking wisdom underneath radiance. When we go beyond self-care tips and, I need to take better care of myself, which is important. Self-care rituals and self-care practices and the mindset of making sure we are cared for, super important. And I've spent the last 15 years since I started teaching self-love in that realm. And we are at a place in the world, and what we do here at Feminine Power Time is we go deeper, and we are not just surfing in the mainstream consciousness. We are a few steps ahead. And so what we're interested in exploring in this series is this essence of your radiance. And if you remember from last session, your radiance is your light. It's that inner, almost like cordon of light that runs through you, that when it's high and it's charged, it makes you magnetic. It draws things to you. It supports you to feel vibrant and vital. It is what opens up your genius and your intuition. And so many of us, well, none of us really, most of us didn't receive here's how to protect and charge up your radiance 101 classes. We didn't even get self-care classes. Who are we kidding, right? So here's what we're going to do. Last time we dove deep into your radiance, what it is, and what really restores it, what charges up. And I've been loving those of you that have been posting your radiance wheels up on the Feminine Wisdom Cafe. And if you don't know what a radiance wheel is, go back and listen to episode 185 and come over to the Feminine Wisdom Cafe, which is femininewisdomcafe.com. It's our private community that's hosted on Mighty Networks, and you can see some of the awesome radiance wheels that people are posting. And those radiance wheels are the 7 or so different things that if you put these into the rhythm and the routine of your life, the radiance cycles through. It looks like a flower, like a wheel. Or you're feeling dimmed or drained. It's like you can play like Wheel of Fortune, but it's like the radiance wheel. You spin it and be like, okay, what do I need? And so what we're diving into today is this is kind of the flip side. If we focused last time on what really lifts up that radiance so that you can stay light in a time that's very challenging and there's a lot of heaviness and there's a lot of chaos. Like we talked about, you can't wait for the world to get to Shangri-La or even stability really out there, we, especially in these coming months, need to do all that we can to stay light so that we can stay present within the swirl, whether it's a person's swirl, the world's swirl, or the changing in our own life, without being sucked up into the heavy, heavy, heavy emotions and base level fears. And so this is the practice of staying light. So today we're going to illuminate what it is that drains your radiance, what it is that dims your radiance, what it is that distorts your radiance so that you can see it. Because if you don't have language for something, remember, you can't actually change what you can't see. So the intention here is I've been spending the last year or so really diving into radiance. And I asked myself this question a year ago: what drains my radiance? So I'm going to share some of the things that I found. I'm going to share some of the things that I found within my leadership councils who have also been studying radiance specifically in the last year as a two parts. One is, how do we really root in and sustain our personal sustainability as we're out in the world, giving our missions and doing our purpose work and supporting those that we're here to support. And also, how do we keep this longevity, this health? And how do we also be light so that we can attract the relationships and the opportunities that are right for us? So as we go through this today, you might want to grab a piece of paper because you might want to jot some things down. If you don't have paper, that's cool too. You can always come back or do it afterwards. And then as we go through, we're going to go kind of shine a light on 3 different areas. So there's first within yourself. What are the actions or the feelings or the things you do consciously or unconsciously that drain or diminish or dim that radiance? And then we're going to shine a light, and this is kind of the easy but the challenging part. What is it within your interactions with others and the world at large? I mean, we're going to go deeper into that next time when we have Noah coming on, my partner, who's just very masterful at working with energy and helping us shift our energy when it gets blocked up, or what we like to call when you get gooped up. And he's the person who helps me, the women that come to my retreats. He's often there doing this work with them, and they call him the shamanic chef because he cooks for us, but he also will shimmy shammy your energy field and help you get the goopies off. It's a very technical term, I know, but we have to keep light here, right, everybody? Like if we don't stay light, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. So he'll come. We're going to touch on it today. We'll go deeper next time. So make sure to come back for that. And then we're also going to look at wherever like your projects or progress and things that you want to be moving forward. It's a big place that our radiance can get drained. Especially, I've noticed this year, things just haven't been moving as quickly as I would like them to, which is why probably my theme for the year is purposeful patience, but more on that. So that's what we're going to do. And before we dive in, just want to remind you all that one of the practices for staying light is the quarterly power pauses that we take. And we're about to start the mid-year power pause. So if you haven't come over and saved your space for that, go to flowpowerpause.com. It's a 4-part process that gives you the space to imagine and tap into the higher field of where you want to put your energy. And then also what's in divine alignment for what you desire to create and what's also going to be supported. And it's something that we do with women all over the world. So come and check it out, flowpowerpause.com. All right. So I'm going to take a sip out of my water. I have my bamboo water mug that I got when I first came to Asheville last year to see if it was a place that would support my radiance. You know, place where we live is a big impact on us, where we live and where we work. I wasn't going to talk about this, but we might as well since it's coming up in the field. And I was going to invite you to slow down here with me as I start to slow down. So we're going to talk a lot about frequency today and places that we live, whether it's our house or literally the location that we live in, or even the places that we go to work. They all have a frequency, right? So you notice like the difference of maybe going to Denver, Colorado is different than going to Vermont, is different than heading out to Sydney, Australia, or being on the British Isles, or being in the city of Toronto versus the mountains of Vancouver. These all have different energy fields. They're frequencies, and you and I also have frequencies. And we can have places that really align with us, like you feel good when you're there. And that's because they support your frequency. And the same can be with work and places that we've worked. I noticed this a lot before 2020 and the great catalyst, when the world realized, oh my goodness, we don't have to be in the office 5 days a week. For most of us, I know those that are work and service provider things like doctors and other things, you need to actually go into to do that. You don't need to stay there for 24 hours at a time, or even how we educate kids and how much time we spend in that frequency. It's a big drain on us, and I noticed it. I noticed it back in 2006 when I made the choice to leave being a corporate employee, mostly because I couldn't do my work when I was in the office. I worked up on the 16th floor, 14th floor with the PR people. And it was just a lot of frenzy. And I would close my door, and then I would get feedback that I was, being antisocial because my door was closed, and I was a writer. So I wrote, or that's what I did. And I asked if I could work from home on the days that I was writing, and they said no. And also I took a couple vacations, and they told me I took too many vacations, even though I was using my vacation time. And, vacations are a reset. They're a frequency reset. Being in my own energy field would allow me to be more productive in my work. And so the great thing about 2020 is that we've proven what sages and I and many of you have known all along. There's no reason that we have to go into these energy fields that are frequencies that keep us locked into them. Even for my clients who are doctors that do need to go to work, when they're there 24 hours, it's like it does something to our energy field. And being around the energy in a hospital for all that time without a break outside of it does have an impact on us. It does drain our radiance. It does dim our radiance. It isn't like most hospitals these days are places that are, there's not like a wellness room that you can go sit in with a bunch of plants and meditate and just reset your field. Maybe in some places. And so I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I think it's really important, because what I want to make sure as we go through this today, and we're not just doing this series for this 3 series, this is like a lifetime practice, that you start to get more aware of frequency and how it impacts you. The same thing is like if you ever walked into an IKEA. Like I can't go into IKEA. I can't walk into a Walmart. I can barely walk into a Safeway. I go to the local butcher, and I go to the place where the farmers sell, and I go to if I have to, I go to Whole Foods, which and so because the frequency of those places, like when I walk into IKEA, my whole energy field just is like, because it's like, do you ever notice or Target, like it wants to make you buy more stuff, and there's so much stuff. So when I go into it, and there's so many people in there that are just operating from that buy more, consume. And it's like, if you're aware, you'll notice the energy just bopping all over the place. And there's this term, highly sensitive person, that people either coin themselves or they get coined. And it used to, I think, be pretty derogatory. It still can be. But the thing about sensitivity is that sensitivity is connected to your senses, and your senses are connected to your intuition. So it's not a liability. It's not a deficiency. It's not something that's wrong with you. A person who has a high level of sensitivity is operating at a higher frequency. So when those denser frequencies are flying around, it has an impact on our energy field, which is why next week we're going to talk about how do you protect your energy field, if you do need to go into places and spaces like that. And what was interesting, one of the things I noticed, I do a lot of workshops for companies and organizations. And when I would go in person before 2020 and the pandemic, I would feel like I had layers of protection, layers of energy I had to work through to kind of get to the heart of people there. And it was almost like everyone was tuned into the same frequency. And it was not about radiance. It was about productivity and getting stuff done and using your life force to just keep going. And when I was doing these same workshops while people were at home, They would be in their comfy clothes. They would have, hats on if it was the winter. And it was so much easier to get them to open up and to feel connected. And they looked more human. And even like the women, their hair got longer because at that time, nobody could get their hair cut. And there was a softening in the field and there was an openness in the field. And it was because they weren't matrixed into the energy field that's there. We could spend this whole session talking about this, but we're going to kind of pause there and just take what I'm saying here about this question and right about what drains and dims, distorts my radiance, and start to notice the places that you are living, working, and even when you go to visit, if you go spend time with somebody, there's a frequency field. That's going to help start to understand what's restoring your radiance, what's dimming it or draining it. And then as we talk next week, what you need to actually protect it. All right. So let's peel another layer. Let's talk about what drains and dims your radiance within yourself. So I want you to go ahead and just close your eyes for a moment and just take a breath and see if you can connect with your radiance. Again, your radiance, it can feel like a cordon of light that's running through your body, like a vertical selenite wand or a vertical like lightsaber. I've been watching Star Wars. And just see if you can connect with that. I can feel it almost instantaneously, but that's because I've been meditating for 20 years and I've been connecting to this light for at least 15. So it's okay if you don't feel anything. Maybe just like take a little pump of your perineum, maybe just touch the top of your head or just rub your chest just to be like, sorry, I keep hitting my desk there. Just like I'm tuning into it. And some of you may be absolutely able to see it or feel it. And then also extend, if you feel that radiant field, also extending out to what is called your magnetic field, or what I like to call your Glenda the Good Witch bubble from a Wizard of Oz. And this is that magnetic field around you. And just seeing if you can feel that, or just even imagining it, the edges of it. And I like to imagine and intend like a rose golden light. And when this is strong, right, and it's expanded, it's like you are radiant. People notice you, you look healthy. And when it's not and it's contracted or it has holes in it or that inner light has been like sucked out or drained down or diminished or distorted, you don't look as good. If you ever like notice like a picture of yourself where you don't look as good, and your emotions, your feelings are wobbly and of like the denser variety, and you feel more anxious or more anger or more frustration or more doubt or more confusion or more fear. These are all signs that your radiance is low. Your emotions will always be the key, and or your physical body. Today, Noah just felt like he was like hungover, and he didn't eat anything or drink anything that would make it that way. But he had a conversation with his mother, his sister, and somebody else that was just really draining, and he got gooped. And so his radiance was like super low. So we sent him out with the dog to go play Frisbee with his 5-year-old self and the dog, and then go out and just be free and get shimmy-shammied off. So your emotions a lot will show that. And for some of us, we go to anxiety. For some, we go to anger. But let's talk about some of the, I came up with a series of F's that I've noticed with myself and the other women in my counsels lately about what drains. And think about that drains. Sorry, I keep moving around. And I'm here in my cozy cottage, my halfway house. And so I have my little desk right now, and it just keeps bumping around. So if you hear bumps, I'm not going to edit them out. So just bear with me and know that this is like, you and I are sitting here having a glass of tea together. So here's the F's I came up with, and I'm just going to say them out loud, and you can write these down or just kind of think about them, and then we'll kind of touch on each one. Okay, so here's the ways that we drain our radiance or dim it or distort it. So think drain like it's getting sucked out of you. Dim, it's like, that light is getting smaller, like a light you're turning off, or it's getting dampened down. And distortion is like like a frequency. It's just you're not in the beam, which we'll talk about in a moment. And you're just like, what you're saying and what you're doing is off. Your frequency is off. So it's like, instead of playing classical music or high vibration music, you're playing like, there's like, something's off in the background. Okay. Forcing, forgetting, and feeling like something. These are 3. And of course, there's so much more, but Noah and I were talking about the podcast yesterday. He's always my first line advisor for many things. And he said, Christine, you cannot give them a dissertation on radiance. You've been studying radiance at some level for 20 years, but specifically I've gone deep in this year to study it. So I'm not going to give you the dissertation, but I am going to give you some points to focus on. Okay, so let's talk about forcing or pushing. So forcing is like, where are you forcing something to happen for yourself or in your life, that, or pushing something to happen, forcing it, that is not, it's like almost like pushing a rock up the hill, or pushing it, and you have to use so much of your own energy, of your own light to get it to go, and it's just not going. And it could be like you're trying to force a decision, or you're trying to force something to happen at work, or you're trying to, make something happen because you think it's what you should have to do. So like, I'll give you an example. Noah is exploring what he wants to be doing with the next evolution of his career. So he spent the last 10 years really being an advisor to me and to our business and running the operations, and then also runs a business called Know Your Numbers with Noah, where he does financial numbers advising for female entrepreneurs. And he's sitting with what he wants to do. And so, we're thinking about, we've been nomads and lived all over the place for the last 10 years. So we're thinking of putting some roots down. And so we're like, okay, well then we're going to, need to get a mortgage and do those kinds of things. And so what's going to support that to happen? And so Noah's exploring what he wants to do with his career. So one of the things we had him do, he really loves working with the environment and repurposing things. He loves to find things that he could be used for other things. He loves to build things with his hands. So we're like, well, he could go. He has an analytical background as well as a deep spiritual relationship. He has his MBA, or not his MBA, his master's degree in spiritual psychology. He's like, well, you could go get a job working for a company that works in the industry that you're interested in, but you could go do financial analyst work for them and help them make great decisions, because that's basically what you do, is you help people make good decisions. So he started down that route and started looking at places that he could do that on. And I sent him some suggestions, and then he started his resume. And it was like he gave me his resume, and I was like, that is the most uninspiring resume. He wrote a resume that was for a numbers monkey. And Noah is super intuitive, and he's a great counselor aide and advisor and coach. And I'm like, this is the job you want? And it was his radiance was just it was the size of a pea. There was no radiance. He had cloaked his radiance because feel like he had to force his way into going back into having a job and doing what he did before, which was numbers analyst and advising salespeople and executives and leaders about what to do based on their numbers. And you could just feel it just dimming his light. And for those of you who have read Overwhelmed and Over It, you'll remember in the chapter on forcing and pushing, I talk in there about how I've had many conversations with my clients where they've said things like, if I go back in, if I keep working this way, if I don't quit this job, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. I just can't do it anymore. And so we just sat with what was showing up. This is the thing, you're not always going to get an answer. So we're like, okay, well, just stop forcing it, because it's obviously not happening. Literally, I took him out to dinner and I helped him, fluff up his resume. And then he left the resume and the clipboard at the restaurant. I'm like, something's going on here. So he worked on removing his own energy blocks and his own resistance, because that's part of what you want to do, is you want to say, okay, how might I be blocking the energy flow by forcing something that's happening, or pushing something, or even resisting something. And so we did the inner work, the energy work. We'll talk more about that next week, and remove those blocks. And still it did not light him up. And he just looked at me one day. We were sitting out on the patio, and he's like, Christine, if I go back in and do this job and what he calls a numbers monkey, he's like, I'll just die. Like, I just can't do it. And I've had clients, one specifically, who did die. Bonnie's story, Akalia's story is in Overwhelmed Over It. She had left her, like, having to be in the frequency. She was a salesperson for a big pharma company, traveling all over, always on the road. And when we started working together, as we got our deeper connected to her inner wisdom was just saying, if I don't get off the road, I'm going to die. So she, left traveling all the time, and she started doing advising and coaching for younger managers, and she loved it. And that contract ended, and so she was going to have to go. She needed to figure out how to, make money, and she was going to take another job doing the same thing, traveling all the time. And she called me 3 weeks beforehand and said, "Oh my God, I could, I'm feeling the swirl, and I'm already, swapped up in it." And 3 weeks later, she was in the emergency room in the hospital on Christmas, and she died a week after that. Her heart gave out. And so, I'm not sharing this to bum you out. I'm sharing this to illustrate that this conversation is not some fluffy, wuffy way that our culture looks at self-care. It's not pampering. It's not pedicures. It's not all, and those are fun and all, but this is about your radiance. It's your light. And Akalia was one of the brightest lights I have ever known. She just was like, she'd walk into a room and her body just was done. Like, the light was like, nope, we're not using the light that way. And so just noticing for yourself, again, no judgment. This is about self-honesty. And it's also about, we're going to go to this next F, which is forgetting, about understanding that you're not in this alone. So let's say we believe what they teach at Waldorf schools, which I love the Waldorf schools. And my God, as daughters, I got to go to their kindergarten. When they were in kindergarten, I got to visit them in Chicago. And in their birthdays, they have these parties on your birthday, and your parents come, and the parents tell the story of your birth, and we celebrate you, and they talk about how you're this light, and you came from the universe, and, through the rainbow bridge, and now you're here, and you're still a light. And they talk about you're a light. And it's not like, hey, you're a sinner. You have to repent for your sins. It's like, no, you're a light, and we see you, and we love your light, and your light is beautiful and unique, and the world needs your light. Like, can you imagine if all children and all people were consistently reflected that? I can, and I look forward to the day when that happens. And so, because this world it's like, at some level, if we were to look at it from the Star Wars perspective, if you haven't listened to If Mothers Ruled the World, listen to that podcast. It goes more into this. There are these, people call it the patriarchy, call it whatever you want to call it, the controlling factors. They don't want all the lights to start getting brighter. They don't want your light to shine bright, because then they're going to lose their power, because people, once their lights start to get brighter, the fear, they start to see through the illusion. The fear starts to melt because there's something more. There's a light. It's like being a lightning bug, like you go towards the light. You fly towards the light. Like, we're naturally built to do that. But in the absence of light, people will go and get sucked in to the vortex of the darkness. You and I are also susceptible to this. And it's all about forgetting. So how you dim and diminish your light is by forgetting. So here's a couple ways we can forget. See how these might be showing up for you. So it's mostly about forgetting connection. So it's connection. Are you forgetting? Do you forget your connection to your soul? So that means that's all about you remembering who you are. At the core of who you are. No one can take that away from you. Your soul is your soul. You come in with it, and your soul departs out with you. I remember when my soul dog, Nanook, passed over the Rainbow Bridge at 17 and a half. And I was holding her in our backyard, and we had a beautiful ritual. We were sitting on these blankets, and we had the person come to do the shots. He gives her the first shot, and, she goes she settles down and goes limp. He gives her the second shot, and I'm holding her. She's a Siberian Husky, kind of like holding a wolf. And I felt this energy, like an energy ball, shoot out of her body and like up into the sky. And her whole body just went limp. And it was like, oh my God, like that, her soul just shot out of her body. And I'm now just holding a wolf pelt, a husky pelt. It just felt like a pelt, like a fur, like a fur pelt. And I've had that visceral feeling. And maybe some of you have been with others when they've passed and you have felt that viscerally. That's my sensing. That's my highly developed intuition. And it's not mumbo jumbo. It's not woo woo. It's very real. And wisdom traditions have taught this forever. And it's not like, you've heard some of the science studies of like, oh, like the body gets like, lightens up like however many ounces when someone passes. They say that's the soul. And the soul, you can't really understand the soul with science. It's not meant to be measured with science. But you, when you're connected to your soul, you're connected to your genius, you're connected to your truth, you're connected to the teaching that you are perfect just the way you are. How you're created is exactly how you're meant to be. And if you feel like you don't fit in, if you feel like you don't belong somewhere, if you feel like something isn't for you, yeah, sometimes that can be that inner mean girl, that abandonment, that like thing that happens. But often it's just you not honoring who you are. And this is why we did the self-love series, and I talked about this. The question isn't, do I fit in? Question isn't even, do I belong? Of course you belong. You belong on this planet because you're here. You are a being of light that is meant to be here. The question is am I connected? So one of the reasons I say you have to have that morning practice where you hit the 4 points of connection: self-love, connection to others, spirit, divine downline, and physical body and earth, is because you got to connect to your soul. And there are ways to do that. If you are like, I don't know what Christina's talking about, or my God, I totally forgot about that, go check out the Daily Flow practice kit that I created, dailyflowpractice.com. It has a video in there. It has a booklet in there. I talk about this in Overwhelmed and Over It. This is, there are ways to do that. There's a really great mantra song called Light of My Soul by Ajit Kaur. And I'll see if I can put it into the show notes. And when I had one of our councils this summer, or this fall, as we were deepening our practice around radiance, we listened to that for 40 days. And I love that mantra. And so like mantra is a great way to keep your light up. It's a great way to connect to your soul. When you meditate, if you put your thumb about, and you can try this with me right now, if you put your hand on your belly and put one hand on your heart and the other on your belly, and then take your finger, your thumb, and just put it about 1 inch above your navel. That is where the yogis say the seat of your soul is. And it's why we do so many breath exercises, and why I love doing Pilates, because Pilates actually connects you to your core. It's not about having flat abs, although, whatever. it's nice to have to feel lean, but it's because out of there comes, from a yogic tradition, what's called the 72,000 nadis. So it kind of looks like nadis are like almost like energy capillaries that come off of you and tap into and connect to the bigger energy field. It's kind of like if you've ever seen one of those balls that like if you touch it, like the energy like comes up like almost like electricity and you can see it. That's kind of what it might look like. So this is also why Sabbath is important, and having space outside of the frequency of work, outside of the frequency of others, to go be in nature so that you can connect with yourself, with your heart and with your soul. So what would be one thing that you could do, an action that you could put into your sequence to start keeping that light, to connect more deeply with your soul? For me, even doing pottery, like that's part of just allows me to go and not have to be productive and just see what, that creativity. That's why the flow power pause is so creative, and why we have the rituals, the morning practice, the evening practices. It's part of what connects you to that soul. Ritual connects you to your soul. Okay. Other thing we forget, spirit, your connection to your divine downline. So how connected on a scale to 0 to 100 are you feeling on a daily basis to the divine downline, to what in Star Wars they would call the Force, that bigger light? When you're not feeling connected to that, you are just like this. It's like being having a battery. That's your radiance, and then charging it up like your cell phone, and not having a battery to charge it later. It keeps going down and down and down and down until eventually it just turns off, and now you've just been sucked into believing that the mainstream world is the only reality on the planet, which it's not. There's many realities, right? This is one of the things we talk about here is we don't ever say, oh, I have to go back to reality. There's many realities, and we move in between realities where we live at and also where we might work at and where we interact at, and being able to move through all of those and make sure you set yourself up in a strong frequency that supports you. That's how we stay light during these times. And so I remember I have a woman I work with who I do leadership coaching for, and actually almost everyone I do leadership coaching for, depending on how conscious and open they are, I have them shift who they work for. So instead of thinking about, oh, like I work for this company, right? They take a job working for the divine, for the universe, for God, whatever their cosmology is around that, for the Force. If we were Jedis, we would work for the Force, right? That's what we would work for. And so what that does is when stuff gets wonky, when job insecurity might show up, when things are just hard, it's like, who do you work for? I work for God. I work for the universe. I work for the divine. I work for Force. When you actually really do that, then you're in co-creation. And so every morning in your practice, one of the ways you stay light and not get drained by forgetting that you are connected is making sure you're connecting to that divine downline and plugging your battery, plugging that cord and light up into the divine downline and down. The divine isn't just up there in, wherever there is. It's also right here on earth. And it's really important that you feel connected to that higher light energy here. So for those of you that have done the 4-hour practice, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who have not tried the 4-hour practice, I will put a link. It's on my blog. It's also up on the Stay Harmonized section of the Feminine Wisdom Cafe. It's called the 4 R's. Very not sexy, but I created it and downloaded it January of 2020. And it's a root down, rise up, relax back, receive. I do it every morning so that I'm rooting down that light, that cordon of light down into the ground and rooting into the earth, that connection to that divine. And then I'm going up into whatever the cosmos is. And then that's filling your light. So try charging that up every morning. Then you're not going to go and dim down. One other practice you can do to stay light is to add in this prayer. It's kind of a prayer of surrender, but I hold it as a prayer of co-creation. And it's something we practice in Feminine Wisdom Way and was taught to me by two different people who don't know each other. One who wrote the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff series book, which is, a much about staying light, and another one who's an amazing inspirational speaker. And it's this. Divine, play me like a finely tuned instrument in your orchestra. Show me. Divine, play me like a finely tuned instrument in your orchestra. Show me. Divine, and maybe even close your eyes and put a hand on your heart. Place another hand on your belly. Your thumb right at your above your navel, and I like to put my hand over my belly, my creative center, and then also just my pinky touching that pelvic bone, which connects you to that earth plane. Divine, play me like a finely tuned instrument in your orchestra. Show me. If you do something like this every day, you're going to go into the world and your light is going to actually stay brighter, and you're going to feel more like protected, so that the dims and the distortions and the drains won't happen as much. I don't know how to keep your radiance high without these points of connection. And the last one I'll say about this forgetting piece is that you forget that you're in what's called synarchy, that you're in sisterhood, that you're in connection with others, This is why the third R in the 4 Rs is relax back. So if you were to close your eyes for a moment and just relax back into whatever you're sitting on, or if you're walking around or you're moving, just relax your shoulder blades. And if you can't close your eyes, it's okay. I just want you to go ahead and presence the people in your life that are closest to you, that you know love and support you as unconditionally as they can, that they're there for you to reach out to lean into. And it's okay if you don't have a lot. It's a good thing for you to focus on creating more, but it's okay. Just at least find one. They can even be dogs, cats. And then from there, start to imagine almost like circles of lights or like a web of light that's just extending out. And it has all of these lights on it. We talked a little bit about this last time. This sisterhood, this synarchy. Synarchy is like a beehive, and it's like all of these lights. We all have our part. There's all of these other people out there that are doing good in the world. And when you forget you're part of that, when you forget that that sisterhood is here for you, for those of you that want sisterhood or brotherhood or community, whatever that is, when you forget it's there for you, your light dims. Just talking to a dear one that I do some coaching for, and she really wants connection. And, we've been working on this for years, and she has someone coming to visit her, and she's like, oh, I just wish I could be by myself. I'm like, well, just notice that, right? Where is that wish coming from? That is that old programming that is like, I need, because she's been so at work, surrounded by so many people, her energy, her radiance has been dimmed and kind of sucked out. So now she does want that alone time, which she does need. But then when somebody that is like uplifting and is truly can be in sisterhood, she's almost too exhausted to connect with that person. And like that's a sign that the way we're working and the way that we're living is not supporting our radiance, that we're so exhausted that we don't even want to be around people. Now there's times for that. Like I get to that place too where I've had a really intense week and I'm like, I do not want to be around other humans. But I have a difference between humans and people who I'm in sisterhood with. People who I know I can have a wise woman tea with. Because if I have that wise woman tea with them, even if I have a little resistance, before I get onto the Zoom with them, I feel so much better. I lift up. It brightens my light. So one of the practices I do for staying light is called the wise woman tea. You can make this a wise person tea. You could just make it a virtual tea. I schedule these in my life. They're part of my rhythm. I have a dear friend, Eric, who I meet with every 6 weeks, and we meet around the cross quarter points and the quarter points, and we just kind of come together and share what we're seeing and what we're feeling, and we feel so much better. And then I also have I also love to be able to, I have all of my like close clients and people who I've been in connection with, I have all their birthdays on my calendar. And so I always send a birthday blessing to them via text on their birthday, and that lifts me up. And then I say, hey, maybe let's have wise woman tea for some of them, and we reconnect. And so that connection with them, or I just reach out and say, hey, would you like to have wise woman tea? And I'll feel that person, like I'll sense them. Again, going to the sensitivity, I'll sense that person, or I'll think of that person. And then instead of just like letting it float out, I'll send out a text. And we'll connect, or I'll send out a Voxer. And so that connection is so there for you. Make it part of your rhythm. It's also why with my leadership councils, why we gather in group on the quarter points. And so there's like this coming together with people of a high vibration. So how are you gathering either in person or virtually with other people of a high vibration? That community part is really important. Okay, last one, because we could have written a dissertation, but I wanted to get the last two. I think what we're going to do is we're going to save the interactions with the world and others at for next time when we talk about getting gooped up, because that's really what happens when we get gooped up is it is in our interactions with others in the world. So I'm going to save that with Noah and go deeper into that, and we're going to just stay here focused on these F's around within ourselves, and then with the projects and the frustrations, because those also have F's. They're all F's, so we're going to stay with that. And and I also wanted to just say thank you. One of the things I also asked for some support around was either posting up a review on the podcast or on Overwhelmed and Over It, because it helps more people see it because of however these algorithms work. And my job is to, help the people who are wanting to stay light to stay light. And so I want to say thank you to Evolving Jen and to Kathy and to Womanfly, who all left reviews. I just love the reviews. One, Womanfly said, I've been listening for several years now, and I even take notes. It just made me smile. Christine blends the mystical and material in such a beautiful way. And Kathy said, practical and real, approachable, enjoyable, which I'm sure most would agree the world needs more of. And Evolving Jen said, I look forward to each new episode. Christine's timeless wisdom empowers me. It's sustainable and practical. But thank you for that. It keeps me light. It keeps me going. And it's okay to need these things. But we have to ask. So it's also okay, just so you know, like in your relationships, which to me, you and I were in a relationship, even if we've never met in person, or if we have. You and I are conscious beings on the planet, choosing to do what we can to stay light, to bring light. And that's not hooty woody, pooty pooty, shoo shoo, duty, new age. Although I even hate saying the word new age. We need a new age. We need a new era. We need a new age, and we need it now. And we're moving into it. So this is also part of just those that want the dimmed stay. They make fun of and they discount things like new age. And so the thing about light, and also the thing about love. Rudolf Steiner wrote about this, who, if you don't know about him, he helped found and created the curriculum and the foundation for the Waldorf schools, and also probably one of the fathers of biodynamic farming, and really ahead of his time back in the 1920s. A pioneer. And he says this in his writing. It's like, when we talk about light and love, it's not just some airy thing. He's like, it is real. The power of love and the power of light. And when we discount it and we step out of the beam of our power, and we just can't do that anymore. So, okay, I'm not saying you have to go into work tomorrow and start talking about love, but why not? I'm asking you to embrace this as real for yourself. And to play with it. My role here is not to tell you what to do. Don't ever listen to anyone who tells you you should do this. I am here to open up a portal and access to things you may or may not be aware of, to help you see where your power is within you, to look around and see what's real out there, and then apply this timeless wisdom real practically in how we run our businesses, our lives, our families, and how we create this culture that we're here to create. So just taking a deep breath and just allow just being here right now to restore some of this radiance. And I'll end with these last 2 or 3 pieces. What drains our light? Feeling like. So when you say feeling like, so you put like after it, it becomes a judgment. It's no longer a feeling. It's okay to have feelings of frustration and anger and sadness and grief. And, sometimes you need to just go into those feelings, and it's okay to allow yourself to just pull all that light in and go within, and it's okay. You just don't want to build a camp there and stay there, because it's way too hard to get the momentum to come back up. And so you might even, when people are going through grief, they call it grief waves, right? So we don't build a camp in grief. We have to come up and touch the light, and then we can go back down. And then even the way that we live in the world, right? The natural cycles, we are in the sun and then we go back into the winter. Like, it's normal to have these, but your light can stay on even when you're in those dark places. You just don't want to build a condo there. So feeling and emotions are a sign that something is, affecting your radiance. And instead of getting critical about it or with yourself, like get curious, get compassionate around it. And then notice when you're having these feelings and I feel like, so I'm just going to name these and see if any of these show up for you. I feel like I can't do anything about this. I feel like I can't do anything about this. That's when you feel like you're not at choice and you can't do anything, and it will just suck the life force and the radiance out of you. I feel like I'm all alone. I feel like I'm all alone. You can feel how heavy it's even getting. Yeah. And I feel like it's all on me. I feel like it's all on me. I feel like I don't have the support, the resources that I need. I'm just even moving the energy. I don't want it to keep, whenever I move energy, I burp. It's partly how we move energy through us. These are heavy feelings, and I know you are out there feeling something like this or similar. We've all feeling that we feel like a feeling of stuckness, a feeling of frustration, a feeling of, it brings up despair, a lack of hope, and like there's nothing that will dim and drain our radiance faster than despair, or feeling like we're stuck, or feeling like we're not at choice. And so just taking a moment to feel into where you might be feeling something like that in your life, where you can't do anything about this, where you feel alone. That I call it it's the pit of loneliness. Like it'll just stamp out your radiance like no one's business. Or feeling like it's all on you. Or like you don't have the resources, the support that you need. Or you're feeling stuck. Or you're feeling frustrated with the projects. Okay, so here's the practice. I'm going to walk you through it. How to stay light. So notice where this feeling, this heavier feeling is at, how it's showing up, or even the forcing, how it's showing up in your body. How does it manifest? The first step is, how does it manifest? How's it manifesting in your body? I was talking to a beloved the other day, and she's having hip pain and like in her shoulder blade. And so I had Noah come into a coaching session I was doing with her and showed her an acupressure point to release the energy that's stuck there, because it's where it's manifesting in her body. Where is it manifesting? How is it manifesting in yours? It could manifest in your digestion. It could manifest as a migraine. How's it manifesting in your being? What's the emotion or the energy that it's creating? Frustration, anxiety, impatience, despair, loneliness. Like how is it in that magnetic field in your being? And how is it manifesting in your balance? So by that I mean, a lot of times when we have these feelings and feelings like in these situations that are dragging us down, that are happening within us, it creates an imbalance for us. So for me, I go to excess. So excess is one of those things where it could be, in the past, I would just work a lot. I would just be a workaholic. I will excess consumption. I will consume more sugar. Usually it's sugar, so in the form of wine or chocolate. The other day, I think I ate a half a bar of chocolate at 8 o'clock at night. I cannot eat chocolate after 7. And so I woke up and I literally had a little bit of a sugar hangover, right? So the part of the work that we're doing is noticing these things, these imbalances that happen, how it affects our being emotionally, how it affects your body. And then instead of going to, like, my client was like, oh my God, I think I have cancer. I'm like, let's just start with the energy block that's going on right now. And this is why I do acupuncture and why I know about acupressure and what I need to do to move that energy through, because it'll get stuck, partly because like I've been feeling stuck. I've been feeling like I cannot get the momentum that I want to in my projects and in my progress in certain things. So it creates this impatience, and then I feel stuck. And when I feel stuck, it creates hip pain, because hip is connected to the element of wood in Chinese medicine, which is connected to the liver and the gallbladder. And so I get these shooting pains that are going down my leg, which is the liver line or the gallbladder line. So that's why I love Chinese medicine, because it helps us understand how our energy works. And then I have my acupuncture appointment today at 5:00, and I had my Pilates yesterday. Those are all part of what restores and retains my radiance. They're in my cycle. So as this is happening, see how the wheel is already moving for you. You want to have those in place. So noticing first, how's it manifesting in your body, your being, and your balance? Now here's the thing. We're going to take it a level deeper, slow down. And again, just presencing this place. What do I need? What do you need, love, that you're not receiving? Presencing this place that's draining your radiance. What do you need that you're not receiving? And allow yourself to exhale, because it exhales that heavier energy. Is a sign to the liver, which is like the general who's always trying to make stuff happen or whatever, what is it that you're not receiving? And name it. Because once you name it, then you can make sure that you're getting it. And just write that down or note that, because then this is probably a pattern for you. This is probably a pattern for you. So mine will show up like I'm not getting the support that I need, or I'm not feeling the sweetness in my own life, which is why then I go to sweetness. Or if I'm not getting the support or I'm not getting the resources, I'll go into working more and pushing and forcing. Well, I used to. I'm really good at not pushing and forcing anymore. But these are the things, I know them about myself. And they're usually the same things of what we need that we're not receiving. And then here's the last one. What do you need to get back into the flow? What do you need to get back into the flow, to step into that beam? So think about the beam like your own radiance bar running through you. And then there's like the bigger beam. My friend Steve Sisgold, who wrote the book, If You're, What Your Body Telling You, I love his thing. He's like, when my radiance is dimming, he's like, I know I'm out of the beam. When things are feeling hard and I'm feeling stuck, I know I'm out of the beam. So my question is, what do I need to do to get back into the beam? What's the action? I would add, what do I need to get back into the flow? So we call it the flow power pause. Flow stands for focus my life force on what matters now. So sometimes we're feeling stuck because it's a time of slowing down, not a time of forward momentum. And what we're working on now is going to bear fruit come later. Sometimes we're feeling all alone because we've been working too much, or we haven't been home enough, or we've just been too fragmented out there. Sometimes we're feeling like it's all on us because it has been. And also we aren't open to actually receiving the support, and it's part of what we need. So that question, what do you need, love, to get back into the flow? What's the action to step into the beam? And again, you're tuning into your intuition. So this is why we do our practice, so that it's there for you in this moment. And this is the practice, right? Within yourself, this is where your power is. This is why it's feminine power time. It's not just about being a woman. It's about intuition and a lot of the other things that are more feminine in their energy nature that we discount. But it's also about turn out the chatter, tune into what matters. It's about you have the source within you. So we focused here today on what drains and dims and distorts your radiance within yourself, the forcing, the pushing, the forgetting your connection to all those different things, the feeling like and noticing that you can't do anything about it. You're all alone. It's all on you. Or kind of feeling stuck or impatient with your projects or progress. Or I'd even add fragmenting, trying to do too much that will also fragment the power of your radiance. Just had a conversation with a collaborator, and she's like, I think we should just focus on this for this year and put our energy and our light at that. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Complexity is a sign that you have moved out of the beam. And so that's how we come back to, and that you're properly fragmenting your focus. And so this practice that I just gave you of staying light is getting real. Number one, how's it's manifesting in my body, my being, my balance, and starting to notice that. Like I have a little list of things that I know that, when this is showing up, excess, despair, like those are two things, forcing, those are things I know, or that feeling like this is all on me and I have no choice. That creates the despair. And then moving to, what do I need to receive that I'm not receiving? What do I need that I'm not receiving? And 3, what do I need to get back into the flow, to the beam? I'll put that into the show notes too. Take a breath. Take a moment to root down, to rise up, to relax back into this net of other lights, including me here with you. And just even taking a moment to put your hand on your heart and just ask yourself, what do I need to receive today? It's a practice I do every morning. And then I design my life that way to keep my radiance and my life force strong. So with that, we're going to complete today. We'll come back next week. And remember, come to the Flow Power Pause, flowpowerpause.com, 4 weeks to experience these kinds of things, learn new rituals, and then use all of it to where you want to focus your light in the coming year. And thank you so much for all, again, of you of leaving the reviews for this podcast or the book. And if you have a moment to help shine the light, would really, really, really appreciate that. And lastly, just go out in the world and take one thing you learned today and notice and just be an elevator of light in the places that you are, with the people you are. But more importantly, let's just start with yourself. We double dog, triple dog, support you and dare you to put what we're talking into practice and to really support yourself to stay light. Choose one thing, put it into practice, and that will create more light in the world. And we'll be back next time to talk about, what do we do with the interactions with others in the world at large when we get gooped? But for now, stay light, and I'll see you all soon. Much love.
I love that. Deep exhale. Let's do that together. Take a deep breath in and let it all out. We exhale to release whatever is stuck within us, and then noticing, what is dimming or draining my radiance? What I love about this episode and this inquiry is that it helps us to shine a light on things that might otherwise seem small, but that have a profound impact. And I wanted to share a practical example of this from my own inquiry into what drains my radiance. Now, what I'm about to share with you is actually a super simple shift. Not necessarily easy, but simple. And the effects are profound. So this comes from being a part of Christine's Burnout to Balance practice this spring. And one of the things that we look at in Burnout to Balance is how we're starting our days, that first hour. And we bring awareness to what we're consuming, be it putting into our bodies or into our minds or into our energetic fields. And in doing this practice and taking a look at my first hour of my day, I became aware of how early in the day I was checking my phone. Y'all, it was often the first thing I did after sitting up in bed, or at the very latest, like the second thing, I'd look at my notifications while I brushed my teeth. And I'm telling you, this is like the worst kind of multitasking because I'd end up not really focused on brushing my teeth, and then I'd get lost in something on my phone and restart my electric toothbrush like 5 times. And before you know it, I'd wasted the first 10 minutes of my day and exposed myself to pretty unintentional energies. So, again, part of the practice with Christine in Burnout to Balance was, okay, now we're aware of this. And so how are we going to shift? And my challenge was to not look at my phone until after I'd done 3 things. Number 1, brushed my teeth. Number 2, used the bathroom. And number 3, had a drink of water. And in doing this simple practice, this simple shift of no phone until after these 3 things were done, I began to notice something really profound. By simply being present with myself during those first moments of the day, I was receiving really cool wisdom in that liminal space between dreaming and waking when the subconscious is still somewhat online, and it was really magical. And through that, I became aware how looking at my phone was basically jamming up my signals. It was jamming my receptivity to wisdom, to divine wisdom, to my own heart knowing and intuition, and to my connection with earth wisdom. So now I'm present first thing. I'm giving myself the gift of being with myself. And as a result, I'm having complete thoughts, which as a mom of 2 young kids is truly a gift. So that's my share about the power of this inquiry and of the practices that Christine has created for all of us. And so, speaking of practices, I'd like to remind you of the invitation to join us for the Flow Mid-Year Power Pause. Now, we've curated this podcast season, the season of light, as a space to come and recharge your radiance. If you want to supercharge it, come to the Flow Mid-Year Power Pause. We always start the week of June solstice, and you can do it anytime in June and July. It's going to be a beautiful opportunity to come together with other wise beings and pause together to look at all we've done and become so far this year, and to intentionally set our points of focus for the remainder of the year, all with the intention of focusing our life force on what matters so that we can do less, receive more, and achieve a greater impact. This is an opportunity to be live in community with Christine, and I'll be there as well, and also a beautiful group of wise beings. The Mid-Year Power Pause is a powerful practice that we do in the Feminine Wisdom Way community, and as a community, we open the doors to everyone to join us on these power pauses. So it's just a great opportunity to experience the sistership and support of being in community with wise beings. And as they say, when women gather, shift happens. It's truly magical, and I hope you'll join us and take part in the magic with me. Just visit flowpowerpause.com to register, and we'll put that link in the show notes for you as well. Okay, wise beings. So between now and next time, the invitation is to contemplate the inquiry, what drains my radiance? And a great way to open up to receive wisdom and insight on this in your own life is to write this inquiry down with a pen and paper, and just put the paper on your bedside table or tape it onto your bathroom mirror, wherever you'll see it first thing in the morning, so that you can bring it into your day with you and just notice, as you move through your day, what drains your radiance? And as you notice things, write them down in your journal or in an email to yourself or into a note on your phone, because the first step in creating shift is simply being aware of what is. We can't shift what we're not conscious of. Another way to work with this inquiry is to share this podcast with a friend and then invite them to conversate on it with you. Set up your own wise being tea. Seriously, it's like a phone date, but with the intention to illuminate wisdom for yourself and your friend. And if they ask, well, what the heck is a wise being tea? Just share the podcast. Christine just gave a beautiful explanation of it. And as you conversate together, you can share with each other what you're noticing in your daily life to bring greater awareness to it. And then join us for the next episode in the season of light, where we'll explore what to do when your radiance gets drained or gooped by external forces. This is actually one of my favorite episodes, and it'll be super fun because we'll be joined not only by Christine, but also by her partner, Noah Martin. Noah is a master at supporting people to shift their energy when it gets blocked up with interference, or what we call gooped. Together, Christine and Noah will discuss what to do when you get gooped, and you don't want to miss this one, so definitely tune in. Next week, we'll have a special live episode with Christine for the solstice, where she'll be sharing about the practice of the power pause, and she'll lead us through a mini power pause in the episode, so be sure to tune in for that too. All right, wise beings. One last reminder before we send you off to please review, rate, and share this podcast episode. In the feminine, we grow through connection. So make a date with another wise being to conversate on today's inquiry, what drains your radiance? And then tune in next week for the special solstice episode with Christine. Looking forward to being with you again. Sending you all off with much love.